She's driving down the road, 75, 85 miles an hour or so on the highway. It's about 12:30 at night, very dark. She sees the car coming. She turns right. Remember, I'm saying 75, 80 miles an hour. All of a sudden, the guy on that side shoots at her 3 times.
Whoa.
Boom, boom, boom. Takes off. So I'm sure all your viewers are going, well, there's no way that she could see that guy's face.
Mm-hmm.
She was able to do the sketch.
It's Tuesday, and you're listening to Murder Unscripted.
My name's Ed, and for the past 2 decades, I've been producing true crime content for some of your favorite networks like Hulu, Oxygen, and of course, Investigation Discovery.
And I'm Melissa, Ed's bestie and walking, talking true crime database.
We've combined my behind-the-scenes insight with Melissa's morbid curiosity to bring you a podcast that immerses you in the true crime genre like never before.
We highlight victims' cases and bring you exclusive insight from the people who lived through them, with a touch of humor to lighten even the darkest stories.
This is Murder Unscripted.
Dun dun dun!
What is up, crime crew? Happy Thanksgiving week, and welcome to episode 79 of Murder Unscripted, the most immersive true crime podcast on the internet today. I'm your host, Ed Hydock, and with me, as always, is a woman who will only go sailing if it involves the gravy boat, Melissa Spivey.
It's sad how true that is. You know me so well.
Oh, you guys, Melissa and I have been really looking forward to this episode because it's kind of one of the reasons we came up with the whole block, the whole theme idea. Like this whole month, we've been focused on cases where a composite sketch helped solve a crime, or in the case of Ardith Wood, a couple weeks ago, a series of crimes. And today's guest has an incredibly unique way of going about his craft that's very different from the artists in the stories you've heard so far. So Gil Zamora is a veteran forensic artist who has interviewed thousands of eyewitnesses and contributed to major cases, including last week's, the 2003 murder of Kathy Loreck. But what truly defines his work is the science and integrity behind it. So Gil is one of the leading voices challenging outdated interview practices that can contaminate eyewitness memory. And he developed his mindful interview method to focus on gathering reliable cognitive evidence. And he's been incredibly vocal about reform in the forensic artistry world. And for those who may not be familiar with Gil's work in the interrogation room, perhaps you know him from the Dove Real Beauty Sketches campaign, which sparked global conversations about perception and self-image.
So cool.
Oh my God, it's the best. Well, his work pushes us to rethink how memories work, how we ask questions, and how we search for the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to Murder Unscripted, the one and only Gil Zamora.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Thank you, sir.
I had nothing to do with it, right? Okay,
Absolutely not.
Right.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. When I saw the invite, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I get a lot of requests to do things, and then I have to make sure that they're legit.
Sure.
I'll be honest with you. When I went to yours, I was like, wow, okay, these people
really
doing pretty interesting shows. And I just finished listening to a couple of them last week. So fantastic. I'm really honored to be here. Thank you.
Awesome, Gil. Well, first I want to start out by probably the most obvious question that would be on everybody's mind. And that's, at what age did you take an interest in drawing and realize you were damn good at it? Like, was this, you just really liked art class as a kid?
What I learned right away is that when you're the artist in the room, so, thinking back to school, elementary school, the teacher tends to take care of you. And we're doing a project. Oh, wait, Gil, can you do this? And then I would do it. And before you know it, I'm starting to realize, oh, this art thing, I'm getting a lot of positive feedback. I like it. Turns out my uncle, who recently passed, was a great artist. And he used to,
oh, wow.
Unfortunately, he didn't follow his passion. He went into nursing. But every time I would visit him in Texas, it'd be a little challenge. He would draw something, and I try to, mimic him and draw the same thing. So it's one of those things where I learned early on that I had this creative side to me. And every time I was either producing something or working in an art project, I really felt good about whatever it was. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's always been in me. And I think we're going to get to the PD stuff, but eventually, what happened is that turned into something for me. So.
Excellent. So before we get into that, where did you end up studying then? So you turned this like talent into an education, into a career.
Yeah, I was more of an introvert. Didn't I did well in school, but I didn't have a lot of folks pushing me to move on to college right away. I definitely went to college later on. So for those of you thinking, hey, maybe I'm done, I got my my bachelor's degree later on in life after I joined the police department. So
No
it was a
kidding.
10-year
Wow.
journey for me. But as far as art goes, I had a lot of great art teachers, and they were MFAs, Masters in Fine Art, and they really loved drawing the human face. And that was one thing that really um, kind of directed my energies to. A lot of people like doing, landscapes, animals, things like that. But I always tended to gravitate towards drawing faces and kind of connecting with people. It's a lot more difficult, I will say, and there's not a lot of trained trainer portrait artist trainers in the high school to college level. As a matter of fact, when I was taking some art classes in junior college, the instructor there was not a portrait artist, and yet that's all I wanted to do. So he kind of let me do my own thing in the corner of the room, which was fine. But I got my AA degree in graphic design, and then when I joined the police department, as I said, I continued on with my education. And it turned out when I started studying to be the forensic artist, the artist, my mentor, Tom Macris, fantastic fellow, um, he turned me on to this portrait artist. His name was Bob Gerbracht, and he was teaching a portrait drawing class in San Francisco. And luckily, the department saw fit to send me on my way to train with them during work. I mean, if you can imagine
Wow.
being a cop in civilian clothes, and oh, by the way, we're going to let you go train to be an artist
Unreal.
and draw portrait drawings. So it was just me, Bob Gerbracht, one on one with a model. And sometimes she was in clothes, sometimes she wasn't. And I was drawing the figure drawing, as some fine artists might know out there. Um, and I did that for about 6 months. Amazing opportunity to be with someone who was such an accomplished pastel
Yeah.
artist. So I really learned how to do that really well from him. And what was interesting about that is that he didn't want to teach me how to do forensic art. He was teaching me how to draw the face, so that when I would go back to interviewing people, drawing the face was not something that was going to hinder me when I was interviewing people. So if you can just imagine thinking about, wait, I have to put on these two hats. I have to be an artist and a interviewer. But if you're worrying about, oh, I don't know how to draw hair or a nose, that could be kind of difficult for somebody struggling to do the interview. And the eyewitness really doesn't know what's going on, because in their mind, they're just assuming, well, you know what you're doing, so I'm going to let
Sure.
it.
Right.
But that training really helped me. And then I kept going on, got my BA in behavioral sciences, which really helped me in investigations. And then eventually I got my master's in education, because I love teaching adults and teaching students as well.
Eventually, you broke into this field that you're in and you realized there were some kind of systematic problems with the way things were being done. But I feel like there's some steps that led you to that. So, like, when you started, what made you understand that the process was broken? Like, weren't you just learning what everybody else learns?
Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of if you have a lot of law enforcement officers out there, they're going to know it's usually, we're not going to change things unless somebody says we have to do it. Everybody just keeps doing the same thing over and over again, unfortunately. So the good thing for me is I was studying under one of the, I would say, the godfathers of forensic art. His name was Tom Macris. I think I listened to one of your shows the other day, and you were featuring Karen Taylor. I consider her one of those, persons that really kind of put forensic art on the map. She wrote the book, Forensic Art and Illustration. I had that. That was one of the first books that I ever had. And she did a fantastic job to kind of changing the idea of having a police artist, sketch artist, and took it up to another level to say, no, these are forensic artists and they're working in the forensic field. So when I was working with Tom, when I first started in 1992, I eventually went to the FBI Academy, like most everybody does. And when I went there, I'll be honest with you, I really thought I was going over there to learn the most amazing, latest, up-to-date interview techniques. And one of the stories I write in my book is that when I got there, he went around the room. These were sketch artists from around the country in the U.S. I think there were a couple from Puerto Rico, or one from Puerto Rico and another place. But anyway, they were all working sketch artists. And he goes around the room, and this was the fellow that was handling this. His name was Horace Hefner. He is the guy that wrote the book on the composite art course for the FBI. So he was the one.
He's the man, yeah.
And he's going around the room, and I'm just in awe just to be there. And he gets to me and he says, hey, everybody, hang on. What I want you to do in this class is that you're going to be here for 10 days. Make sure that you're talking to Gil Zamora about what they're doing over at San Jose PD. Because what they're doing over there is more advanced than anything we're going to teach you here. Blew me away.
Cool.
I was like, wait a minute.
That is high praise.
So now everybody's coming up to me. How are you doing what you're doing? And I explained to them my process. And I don't know if we're going to get into that, but we might.
We definitely are. Yep.
But what I soon realized is that, because obviously what I wanted to do is I didn't want to just act like, hey, I don't need this. I wanted to see, what are we teaching these sketch artists around the country? And so what I saw is the first thing that happened was, oh, by the way, you're going to be looking at this catalog, facial catalog that they have. I'm sure your viewers know about the facial catalog.
Eyes and noses and mouths and
exactly. And I'm listening to it. Okay, you're going to tell people to pick them, and the artist has a sheet, form that they fill out, and they're filling out all the different features. And then the artist just takes that information and then goes back and draws it. Now, at the time when I was doing this, I knew back at San Jose, because Tom and I had talked about it, we weren't doing it that way. And one of the reasons we weren't doing it that way, meaning I'm meeting with the eyewitness. Here you go. I want you to take a look at these images. We weren't doing that. And one of the reasons why is Tom said, well, it could contaminate their memory. And I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that totally makes sense. And so we didn't do that. Now, Tom did use reference images, and I think some forensic artists that are listening out there will know that they use mugshots. We were doing the same thing, but we weren't showing those images until after the person had gone through describing what the suspect looked like.
Interesting. Yeah, because that will taint their memory. Yeah.
Exactly. But as an artist, like I said, the artists in the audience are going to know, if we see something, we can copy it. That's your whole training. So it didn't take me, it took me years later to understand that what we were doing at the FBI, which is great training for putting images together. So basically, I was sitting with another colleague and we were looking at the facial catalog book and picking different eyes, nose, ears, and mouth, right? Well, it makes sense in that training environment. Why? Because now your colleague can evaluate you on how well you did to morph those features. Not only are you being evaluated on, does it look like a human being, but now, did you do a good job in morphing those particular features? That's what was the key to that training. And like I said, I think it was fantastic for training. What I was concerned about later is that they weren't telling the students, hey, this is good training to do this, but when you go back, maybe you don't want to do that.
Right.
And for me, that was something that just never changed. So I left in 1993 at the FBI Academy, went back to work, started doing everything. Like I said, I wasn't using reference images. In 2010, I go back to speak to other colleagues in the United States through the International Association for Identification, IAI.
Mhm.
And, the buzz is, oh, Gil Zamora is going to do a workshop. And they all know from reputation that I'm not using reference images. They know that. So
Right.
they're all piling in the room to figure out, okay, how is he going to do what he does? We got to see this. Because remember, everyone else there is walking around with their catalogs.
Right.
And
Mhm.
that's the way they do it.
And that's not
So-
to discredit that
No,
technique. It's
no.
just, it's worked for
It's
most
exactly.
people, and you're just different. Yeah.
Exactly. Karen and I have had long conversations about this as well. I did that over the years after she wrote her book and so forth. But what was interesting for me and what I wanted to share with that audience was that part of my presentation involved them listening to an interview that I did with somebody. And what I told them to do right before we were going to do this, I said, put down all your reference images. You're not going to touch anything.
Hmm.
All you're going to do is listen, and I want you to draw as I'm doing my interview. And I got the idea because in my training at San Jose PD with Tom Macris, I sat in the same room he was interviewing somebody, and I would sit about 8-10 feet away, and I was sketching along as Tom was interviewing the actual eyewitness.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I know. I eventually called it shadow sketching later when I wrote my book because I thought to myself, okay, I'm actually just seeing how well I listen. Because here's the thing, when we looked at the sketches back in 93, we weren't looking at it for, wait, how well did you listen to the information, Gil? No, it was more about, can you draw? Can you draw good enough to match my skill level? So that's all we were looking for. And at the time, he was saying, oh, you're doing pretty well. This is great. And you're progressing. But years later, what I found is that when you do it that way, meaning when you're forcing the artist who's supposed, they know how to draw well, and you're forcing them to just listen to what they say and then draw that, then you actually get a better idea of whether they're actually listening to what the eyewitness is saying or not.
Sure.
So that was a great revelation for me. And what it did is it kept reminding me throughout my career that what I was doing was making sure that the information I was gathering was more reliable. Now, to your point, I agree. You've already said it. Well, there are artists that are using reference images, and they've been successful. I get it. Totally understand that. I would like to listen to those interviews themselves. I would like to see whether there was some changes made. Obviously, the changes made or whatever happened still resulted in a identification, which is fantastic, right? And
It's the ultimate goal, yeah.
Yeah, and ultimately, what we want is we want the sketch to go out there and keep the case alive.
Sure.
I've been involved in cases where they're cold cases. We want to get the case going, so I do an age progression. We put it out there. They get more tips, right? So we know that the sketch has some value in the investigation. Sometimes it's just to get it out there to the public to generate those leads.
I'm going to jump to something I was going to ask later, but this seems like a good point, because are there situations where blasting out a face like this to the media, I feel like police are selective when they do it, because it can be very helpful, but it can also hurt, I guess is what I'm getting at.
That's a great point. The only thing I can do is speak for myself, and the experience that I've had is that our bureau really did well working with a forensic artist. A lot of agencies don't work with forensic artists, and unfortunately, sometimes it's just a novelty, and they don't really know how to use that resource to their advantage. So to your point, I would do a sketch. And I think we'll get into this later. I can give them an idea whether I think that interview was was useful enough. I still may have come up with a sketch, but I may say this information, this sketch probably shouldn't go out into the public.
Interesting.
Oh.
Yeah, and the beauty about that is that at San Jose PD, I was given a lot of autonomy, and obviously the success helps, right? When you
Yeah.
have a lot of success, they tend to go, okay, let's listen to what he's saying. So I was coming up with an evaluation of the interview itself, and the information that was coming to me, although I was able to draw a sketch, when you compare that to what actually happened, I can certainly come up with reasons why the information wasn't as reliable. So a perfect example, I had somebody come in, and the agency brought them in, and a lot of times the person is reluctant. I knew they were reluctant because when they brought her in, she did not want to be there. But police insisted in a nice way, and they kept telling her, "Don't worry, Gil's going to sit you in the room, and he's going to, make sure that you can really understand everything," which was not a great thing to tell her. So we start the interview, and part of my interview is to, get you nice and calm and relaxed, ask you to close your eyes, take a couple deep breaths, and we're going to get going. And one of the things that she was doing when I was asking her to do this, she was not closing her eyes. And I could feel the energy in the room. If you're in a room with somebody as intimate as sketch artists with an eyewitness are, you can feel a lot of stuff there going on. You can sense that people are not comfortable. They don't want to be there and so forth. Anyway, I stop because I'm not just going to keep moving. I say, okay, what's the matter? What's going on? I sense that there's something up. And she kind of hesitates and says, well, they told me that you were going to get into my brain and then take the image out of my brain and put it on the sketch. So,
That sounds horrifying.
exactly.
How dare you?
So of course, I wouldn't want to do that either, right? So
No.
I reassure her, no, that's not going to happen. She obviously thinks I'm going to hypnotize her.
Mhm.
But I told her, no, it's going to feel like it, but I'm not. You're in full control. We'll just do it. And so she trusted me, just like I'm explaining it to you. And she said, all right. So we did the sketch, did it over. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because when we're done, she was able to do the sketch. Here's the crime. She's driving down the road, 75, 85 miles an hour or so on the highway. It's about 12:30 at night, very dark. The reason she turns to the right, she sees the car coming. She turns to the right. Remember, I'm saying 75, 80 miles an hour. All of a sudden, the guy on that side shoots at her 3 times.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Go. Takes off. So I'm sure all your viewers are going, well, there's no way that she could see that guy's face.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But remember, that's why she came in. And yet she drew that sketch. So to your point, what I did is I did the sketch, and now I tell the officers there, I said, okay, she was able to do the sketch, but this sketch is not from that incident. And they went, oh, what do you mean? And I go, there's no way that she saw a guy shooting at her at 70 miles an hour at night. In that car, there's no way. Even if you get flash, you're going to get flash, but they're going to be in the back. They can't see.
Right.
So I said, you need to do some more follow-up. She saw this person, and maybe she's a little concerned about identifying him. Well, 3 days later, they call me up, totally excited. You were right. She was at a party, and blah, blah, blah. She was at a party, and we found the guy, and we arrested him. And
No
it was
kidding.
So sometimes that sketch doesn't necessarily mean that it is related to that particular incident and that it shouldn't go out. So that sketch never went out to the public.
Man, I never even thought that would be one of the reasons.
Yeah, because I insisted, no, you need to do more follow-up. And it was an agency that is not normally an agency that does a lot of follow-up. It was a what is our highway patrol. So they're
Mhm.
usually dealing with stuff on the highways, but they
Right.
do have an investigative bureau, but they're not as familiar with that as other agencies. But they took my advice and they went out and looking for more witnesses, and sure enough, they figured it out after a while. So they were pretty happy. But that was an example of
Hmm.
not actually, putting out the sketch
Yeah.
and holding it back.
Hmm.
And so
Interesting.
a lot of the agencies that work with me, they relied on my feedback on that to decide whether something was actually going to go out or not. So
Very interesting.
Wow.
Man, well, how did you develop this mindful interview method? You call it, like, where did the name come from? And kind of tell us about its origin story.
yeah, thank you. Well, when I throughout my career, I was always asked by different forensic artists and other investigators, when you interview people, it's really different, and I see that you're getting a lot of information, but when I'm sitting there watching you do it, it seems like it's no big deal. Um, and I would say, well, you got to do this or whatever, and so forth. So I started thinking about it when I retired from San Jose PD, and when I did that, I had to do some research to figure out myself, well, what is it that's making it as successful as it is? And at the time, I'd always, since probably, geez, at least 2000, I was my mentor Tom. He turned me on to meditation and so forth. So
Mhm.
during that time, I'd always had it part of my life. I would go up and down. I do it sometimes and do it not. But what I was learning is that it was really getting me in a really great space when it had to do with interviewing people. Um, because right before I would meet them, I would do what I call this mindful reset, 5 minutes before or whatever, 10 minutes before. And for those in the audience know, I was usually interviewing somebody who had just had a tragic, awful, violent crime
Sure.
to them,
Worst day
right?
of their
You
life.
can
Yeah.
imagine over and over again, that's all I was seeing,
Mm.
attempted rape, robbery, seeing somebody get killed,
Yeah.
attempted kidnapping over and over and over again. And sometimes, 5, 6 sketches a week, depending.
Oh.
So I knew that the mindfulness side of that, I knew that uh, having that ability to kind of settle my mind before I'm interviewing people was always going to be a plus. And obviously, a lot of research has come out on it, about meditation and so forth. And so it was one of those things that I just kept growing into. And what happened is getting to the crux of the mindful interview method. As I was doing my research on my book, I had ended up recording close to 2,000 interviews of mine. I didn't know at the time that I was going to
Wow.
write a book when I was doing that. I just did it to, for court purposes and for training purposes later. And I did that, and I started looking back at those cases, and I started finding out that I was doing the same thing over and over and over again. There was a certain structure to it. And more importantly, the idea that I was open to anything in the interview. And I think this is what distinguishes me with other sketch artists. So if you think about it this way, if I have a the mug book, and there's this device that I'm using to connect with the eyewitness, I'm really not there with them just listening to what they say. I'm using this tool to kind of go between us. And then there's this
Mhm.
connection with me and the reference images, not with the eyewitness. So
Sure.
there's that disconnect that I started seeing, oh, that's what is different between what I'm doing and what they are doing, others are doing. Let me put it that way. But what I started seeing is I would see myself. I'm watching the videos. I would see myself listen to a question that I would ask. They would give me an answer, and then I would let it go what I mean by that is I would accept it.
Sure.
So if we have I think we're going to have a chance to do a demo. And what would happen is I would do this with other audiences where I would show, look, I've asked this question. Now listen to their answer. And I was just open to whatever happened. And then I would say, look at how I can manipulate their next response.
Mm-hmm.
And people would go, oh, but to our colleagues out there that are really trying to figure out, well, you need to ask this or you need to ask this to make sure. When you do that, you're actually manipulating what is actually authentic recollection and not necessarily getting what was actually recalled. Because when you're in that room talking to the eyewitness, it is very easy for the artist to convince the person that they saw something that they really didn't see. And I'm talking about the simple things like they would say, well, tell me about the nose. And then they would go, well, was it, sometimes I've seen artists use their sketches and they would use other devices to say, well, was it this small or this big or that big? Although it looks like it sounds like you're trying to get precise.
Yeah, you're planting information.
Right. The other thing is, I really believe in the research that's been done about eyewitness memory. It is unreliable. I mean, it is.
Well, so, I imagine because it's traumatic. So I imagine your brain absorbs things differently in situations.
It is traumatic. And so those are for victims, right? But sometimes you're interviewing people that are disassociated from the crime. They just happen to see somebody, right? So there isn't none of that going on. But what we have to understand, and the research is out there, that when you start to figure out whether eyewitness memory is you can use word like precise or accurate, it never happens. It never happens. Yet we need them for these cases to solve them. Obviously, there's millions of them that have been solved. But the point is, the difference is in my method and understanding mindfulness, being very present, being open to the fact that the memory isn't as reliable. I'm willing to accept it at whatever level I'm getting, because when I'm doing the sketch isn't a portrait. It is just a representation of what the person recalled. So when you see a sketch, and I know there's a lot of artists out there do fantastic work. I'll just rattle off some names. You've got Lois Gibson. You got this fellow over in Texas. Oh my God, he's going to hate me now that I don't remember his name.
That guy.
But I'll remind myself later. But amazing work. And so some law enforcement administrators look at that and say, wow, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
And it is. It's fantastic. But that is not really what the eyewitness actually saw. And what I mean by that is that they're not going to give the detail in the shading. They're not going to give the detail in the actual highlights and shadows. That's coming from the artist. That is the skill of the artist, putting that on to make it more realistic, which sometimes is fantastic for the case, but it isn't necessarily what the person recalls. So when we do our demo today, you're going to see that I'm, using a light pencil, and I'm doing it on purpose, and I'm going back and forth and just drawing. And if you say this, I draw that, whatever it is. And when I show you, and what I would do with the eyewitness, is when you see my sketch, it's drawn very lightly, and there's a lot of sketch lines, gestural lines that aren't necessarily the feature itself, because I know I'm going to tighten it up later.
Yeah.
But the beauty of doing it that way is it allows the eyewitness to not feel the pressure of being exact, because their memory isn't exact. So they only see things a certain way. And then what is the other side of this whole thing, this whole map of, doing the composite sketch, interviewing the eyewitness? Well, it's the audience. It's the people out in the community that make that connection. That to me was always fascinating, to not only interview the eyewitness, but to get them to say, that reminds me of him. So I'm done. I'm happy. But then for that sketch to go out, and then someone else, unbeknownst to us,
Right.
Yeah.
related to us, says, oh, that looks like so-and-so, calls the police, says that's who it is, and then you get them, and then they show the pictures, and you go, wow. I mean, that to me blows me away.
It's so cool.
It is. It is.
Well, and that's what I was getting at when I was talking about the generic, like with the people who use the books, you only have a certain amount of eyes. You throw the sketch out there, and sometimes it's so generic where everybody under the sun calls and be like, I think that's the pizza guy. I think it's Bob from work. I think it's this. So it can like saturate an investigation.
It can. I think one of those cases was that Loreck case.
Yeah.
Was fantastic. I mean, that was one of those cases where there was a lot of trust in the resources. And what I mean by that is it wasn't an agency that was my agency. It was another agency. But because we had been so successful in doing our work and being a really good resource for other agencies, there were at least 13 to 15 agencies around the Bay Area that if any high value crime would happen and there was a whodunit case, they would call us right away. So when I got involved in that case, what was interesting for me is that I'm interviewing, I think it was multiple witnesses, and it turned out I had them back to back because it was an awful crime. The woman was beaten and then raped and then left for dead, right?
Yeah.
It was awful, broad daylight.
Yeah.
So I interview two witnesses not related to each other. They don't know anybody. But right off the bat, I can tell that they were describing the same person, whoever it was.
Well, and we looked at this sketch and holy crap. I mean, yeah,
I know.
It was the same. I mean, aside from some sunglasses on the head, same person.
But the thing that was interesting about that case, and the reason I'm glad that the agency kept moving forward, is that if anybody watches that episode, I think it's episode 14 in Forensic Files. I can't remember that was the season. I can't remember.
It was season 14. Yeah. We were actually covering it. So it didn't come out yet. It's coming out next Tuesday, our coverage on the Loreck case. So we do a pretty good deep dive.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So anyway, what was interesting for me is that the sketch looked like certain people, and yet they would go there and say, oh yeah, that looks like him. And it turned out it wasn't them because they're following it up with other evidence, which is fantastic.
Right.
That's what you want, right?
Yes.
Ultimately, they do identify him, and it does look similar, I think, from that.
I do too.
Yeah.
But what I really focus on is that because the officers still had the sketch out, we're still doing canvassing. What did they do? They found someone that was on that trail again that said, oh, I saw that sketch.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw that guy. And he's the one that said, I was smoking right over there and he gave me a cigarette. Yep. That's what cracked the case. So the sketch is out there, all that's going on. But had that individual not been there to put that two and two together, they never would have found him because he's the one that actually got them to figure out the DNA and so forth, which was really accelerated the apprehension of the guy. So fantastic on that.
That was such an interesting case. And I do want to come back to it, but first, I want to talk to you about this acronym that you have. And I don't know how you say it, but it's that is all there is.
TIATI.
Yeah, so we had this discussion about whether it's
guess.
if you spelled it or if you just said it. TIATI.
Yeah. I was reading a couple books. This guy, Voss, he wrote a book on his interrogations for the FBI. And he came up with an acronym about something. And like I said, I was writing my book. And I thought, well, that's kind of the same thing that I'm doing. So what I mean by that is when somebody asks a question and then the eyewitness gives you an answer, when the interviewer then continues to ask questions, even though the person's saying, that's all I have, you need to know when to stop. So that's TIATI. That's all there is. Let it go. Like, don't keep going down that road. And for those of you that have access to, interview transcripts and things like that, you can see that in other interviews, and you kind of go, why do they keep asking? The person said, I really didn't see anything, or that's all I know. And they keep asking them questions. That's what that is.
I feel like with that, it can be more than just, I'm done, I don't have anything to say. Like, can you tell from people's body language and just attitude that they're kind of mentally running out of things to say? Like, they're kind of over it, for lack of a better word.
Well, no, I'm not going to say that I've experienced that, because we're going to do a little demo. You'll notice that
Mhm.
my interview style is more about, whatever it is that you have, I'm going to accept. There
Mhm.
is no, well, I don't know if I believe that. So, one side note, the other interview techniques that are out there always have this underlying thread of, I think they're deceiving me. I
Yeah.
think they're holding something back. That's the difference between what I'm doing and what others are saying you should do. And some would say, well, they do lie to us. They do. I
Yeah,
get
I
it.
was going to say, why is that? Where did that come from?
I get it, because I was on the street and I know, but guess what? I got a lot more information because I was really just trusting them. And if they tell me wrong information or they're trying to lie to me, as a good investigator, I'm going to follow it up somewhere else. Okay, so
Yeah.
this person is telling me a lie. Got it. We're going to write it down, whatever the report, whatever it is. I'm going to move on. This person is not being cooperative. I can always come back, and now I've got more corroborating evidence. But what's going on is some of these interviews is that we want to get to the interrogation right now. And that's the difference between my experience. And like I said, I'm not going to be in the interrogation line. That's another, you can talk to other people about that.
Mhm.
I'm just focused on the eyewitness. And my premise is that the eyewitness is going to give me the best information that they have. Now, I will tell you this. I've had people that lied to me. I've done a interview where they said, "Oh, this person doesn't want to come in. It's been over a year since the sexual assault. She doesn't want to come in."
Mhm.
And detectives eventually convinced her to come talk to me. Said, "It's not going to be us, it's going to be him. We just need a sketch." So they bring her in. I do the sketch. Remember, I do an evaluation on the interview. I finish. I tell them, I don't think there's something wrong with this interview. I don't know what it is, but the information that I gained was unreliable.
Mhm.
So, being the good cops that they are, they're knocking on doors with the sketch in hand. And long story short, they get to a house. The guy opens the door and he looks just like the sketch. And the guy goes, "What are you doing with why are you have my face on that paper? What's going
Yeah.
on?" They kind of looked at each other like, "Holy shit, we didn't think we were going to find anybody."
Right.
Wow.
Right.
So now they go, "Oh, sir, we need to bring you in," because remember, they're looking at maybe a potential rapist right there,
Sure.
right? This woman has spent a year not wanting to come in because she's so traumatized. So they bring him in, they talk to him for a while, they get all his background information. He has great alibis. It's not him. They take evidence and everything. So what do? They bring the picture of the guy with the sketch and bring it to the victim. And they said her face just turned white because
Wow.
she never thought that they would find him.
Right.
Here's the thing. He did not rape her.
You're
He
kidding.
he was a grocery clerk at the local
Oh.
store that she goes to. And so what I'm going to tell you is this. It is very difficult to lie to somebody when you're doing an interview. Now, we're going to do a mock interview today, so it might be
Yeah.
easier for you. But in real life, it is really difficult to lie and keep that going. So what she did, yeah, so what she did is she had that guy in mind and all the features that I was
Uh-huh.
asking. So her story fell apart. She goes, all right, I know I was having this affair with this guy. My husband's coming home. And I panicked. And I just said, yeah, I was raped. So
No
that is why
kidding.
she didn't want to come in. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Wow.
So for those of you out there that are thinking, well, nobody ever lies to you. Yeah, they lied. But here's
They
the
do.
thing. I continued with the interview knowing full well that what I was getting didn't match up with the delay in the crime to the interview. Because
Mhm.
everybody knows that memory deteriorates over time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? This was on steroids. This was over a year. And yet
Yeah.
she was describing features like it just happened yesterday. Now, some would say, well, it was a traumatic experience. It's never going to go away. Well, I've done enough of these that I can tell you it was a little bit more than that. And so I let that be known to the detectives, and that's why they kept following it up. That's why the sketch didn't go out to the media, but they hung on to it to figure out, well, let's figure out what's going on here. So
Yeah.
that was an individual that was definitely deceiving me, but the interview technique allowed that to happen. And still we were able to come up with something. Now I'm the forensic artist, so the difference between me and someone just interviewing somebody is that I actually have a product to show, right?
Right.
Everybody can see it and go, oh, this is the result of that interview, versus someone who isn't a forensic artist and does the mindful interview method. Now all they have is just the statements, the information about the interview itself. So it's a little different. The feedback is different as well. So
This
sorry, I
this
kinda
may
went
seem
on and
like
on.
a really stupid and obvious question, but one thing that Melissa and I have always talked about when we reference you is how soothing your voice is. And
Yes.
I'm wondering, so I'm wondering if that plays a role. Is that just your personality, or have you over time learned to become more chill and just very calming because it helps bring out everything you need to bring out?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of being with my mentor, who is very similar,
Mhm.
meditation, understanding that, I'm dealing with something that was very traumatic with somebody, and I have to gain their trust in seconds,
Right.
basically, right?
Mhm.
I'm not wearing a uniform. I was in plain clothes, even though I was an officer. So I have very limited time to gain that rapport. And I need to do that with my confidence in what I'm doing, with my voice, making sure that they feel like they're not being attacked or not believed. All that goes on, but no, this is just me. That's just the way it's happened. They did a story years ago at San Jose where somebody says it feels like I'm coming out of a spa when you're in an
Honest to
interview.
God.
Yes.
Spot on.
So
It's so funny you say that, because when I called Ed the one day, I was watching Forensic Files and I came across your episode, and I'm explaining to Ed, and I said, he's just so zen, which I feel like is a spa-like word. I
Yeah,
said,
right.
but what really drew us to you was your compassion and how you're so kind to these people and just patient. And I just feel like that rubs off on people, and that sets the tone for the entire experience.
Absolutely. I would open up to you.
Yeah.
Easy.
actually, I used to teach police officers in California. I think it was, I don't know, at least 500 or more. Part of the cognitive interview technique. I'm sure your listeners know about that.
Hmm.
Famous
Mhm.
Fisher and Geiselman. Those guys are fantastic. They came out with the interview technique because nobody had anything formalized, right? So I learned that, but I don't use it specifically. But I will tell you that I built on their foundation, and that's where the mindful interview method has some origins to it, but not necessarily. But what I want to tell you is that because of my interview technique, I was asked to be an instructor. And to Melissa's point, um, there was a point in the interview where we're trying to gain rapport. Now, you tell regular patrol officers, big tough guys or whatever, you
Mhm.
tell them to build some rapport, and they're reading a little thing that says, hey, ask them if they need any water, ask them how they're doing, and that's it. So they would kind of go like this, like, hey, do you need anything? Do you need water or something? Okay, so now what happened? It was
Yeah.
like, So I would go, okay, time.
Uh-huh.
And I go, hey, listen, look, I know that deep down inside of you, there's this really nice person, and there's people in your life that you really care about. I know you wouldn't talk to them like this. So just imagine that other person over there is somebody that you really care about. And then let's do it again. Okay? All right. So then they would come back. It was amazing, the transformation. All of a sudden,
Wow.
everything went down. They were really there. They were present. I mean, I didn't get into the meditation with them because I didn't want to blow them out of the water, but they could understand that. They were like, yeah, okay. If I was talking to my daughter, or my mom, or my wife, or somebody, I would be a little different. Okay, so
Sure.
why can't I do that? So it's really easy for them to transition to the cop that, hey, just give me the facts, to, wow, you know what? This happened. How are you doing? What?
Well, yeah, rather than the other way around, if they had to go from you to a traditional, I mean, that's abrasive.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You make it so much more human, which is
Mhm.
nice.
And if I may, can I transition to why I was asked to be the Real Beauty Sketches forensic artist? Can I just
Shut up. That's the next
Are
question
you
we were
a
going to ask.
mind reader
Stop
on
it
top
right
of
now.
being an artist?
Get outta
I
here.
was just gonna ask about that because yeah, we want to know, like, how did you get involved and what made you feel that the project kind of aligned with your values and everything? I mean, I know you have daughters, correct? Stepdaughters, I think I read.
Yes.
Okay, so I imagine that had to have something to do with it too.
Well, I think what happened is, the way the story goes is, I'm doing my thing, doing my career, right? And there's stuff on me online, people watching, doing whatever. So I get an email. Like I said, I get emails from different projects. Hey, we're going to do a movie. We're going to do this. And yeah, whatever. Sure. So I respond. Well, this time I get an email from this Ogilvy and Mayer. They're apparently a huge multinational company around the world. They're a huge PR firm. They do all these big companies. And I see the tag on there, and it's these guys from Brazil. And they say, we need to talk to you about this project. But before we can talk to you, you need to sign this NDA. And I was like, what?
Oh, it's big.
And I was like, why? And they go, well, we really can't tell you anything until you sign it. And I went, all right, whatever. So I signed it, sent it out through. What I get back in an email is a full-on presentation in slide deck. My face, my name, my interview style.
They had a project planned for you and you didn't even know it.
They had the whole idea of it. And they said to me, to Melissa's point, we've watched the way you've done your interviews. We've done research on all these different sketch artists, and we think that you could do this better than what we would imagine.
Amazing.
We think that you would be able to do this easier the way that you interview people. And so I was kind of like, okay. So I thought, to me, it's just going to be another project. Okay, this is how much I charge. Here you go. Boom. I'll see you later. Yeah. And then as it got close, they started telling me, okay, this is the idea. We're going to want you to interview all these different people. It was still kind of not necessarily totally in line with exactly what you see on the film. It was still up in the air. And they wanted some input from me. And the one thing that I knew, just like I'm going to tell you with our demo, is that the sketch isn't going to be a portrait. I just want you to know that. And they were like, no, okay, that'll be fine. And so I was a little concerned because it was my reputation online.
Of
and
course.
I thought to myself, I don't want to do this project and it's going to make me look like I don't know what. Right. So I told them I will only do this project if I do a test run. And they went, okay. So they want to shoot in January. They do a test run in December. When I'm not doing sketch art and teaching, I love baseball. So I'm normally not wearing a beard. I'm an umpire in high school and junior college. I love it. It's fantastic. Anyway, I'm doing baseball, and then all of a sudden I get to my car and the phone's ringing, and it's them. They flew in from New York, London, and Brazil with their team, and they said, "We're in San Francisco. We have a couple of people here that are just random, and we want to see, like you said, we want you to do your thing to see if we can work this out."
Yeah.
And I said, "All right." So I drove down to San Francisco from San Jose, um, parked in front. They were all waiting for me. I walk in. We don't even say hi or anything. They just say, "Gil, just do your thing." So this woman is sitting on a chair, not facing me. Remember, that was the big trick, is
Mhm.
that can Gil do the sketch without actually looking at the person and interacting with them, meaning with the sketch. Hey, do I change this? Do I change that? That was their goal. Can he do that? So I wanted to know if I could do it. I'd never done it before.
Right. It's self-testing. Yeah.
Exactly. And then the other thing is most sketch artists are drawing men. Men are doing bad things.
Yes, they are.
They're terrible. So now I'm being asked to draw women. So that's a little bit different for me. I love women. I want to do that right. I want to do it well.
Mhm.
So I get there. I sit down. I'm facing the other way. She's the other way. She just hears me. I hear her, and I do my interview. And I do 2 sketches. I get up. I go out to the other room. They're all over there with their videos and watching headphones and all that. They come out and they're all high-fiving each other. And I go, "What?" They go, "This is going to work." And I went, "Really?" And I go,
So
"Yeah." I go,
cool.
"Okay, if you guys are okay with this, then we'll do it." So that was the end. I mean, they wanted to do it with me. They wanted to ask me, "Hey, Gil, should the people be relatives to each other?" And I said, "No." I said, I'm a forensic artist. I can kind of sense somebody might be making up some things, like I explained to you before, where I think this is unreliable stuff.
Well, yeah,
I
you
said,
want it to be random, I assume.
exactly. If
Yeah.
you want me to do this well, it has to be someone that doesn't really know the person,
Mhm.
so that I really get that sense of it's new information coming to me. So that really challenged them to go find random people out in the San Francisco Bay Area who would want to do this. They had to hold them in a room for 2 days while I was coming back and forth to do the interviews. It was crazy.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
Well, and
They wanted to
you
make sure
probably
that it was done correctly. They didn't want any influence. They wanted to make sure it was done right. So kudos to them.
did you have any idea how this thing would blow up?
No. Like I was telling you, I thought I was just going to do the sketch and be done.
Mhm.
And so near the end, if I could just tell you this one little thing,
Of
near
course.
the end, we were, I was obviously I'm talking to these witnesses and these women. I've never seen them before. I don't even know who they are. But now at the end, in the reveal, where we're going to show the sketches, now I get to see them. They've heard me the
Oh,
whole time, so now I see them. But I'm seeing them with a producer person. And the way this was going to go is the producer person was there with the woman, the real Beauty Sketches woman, and me. I was just there, just kind of like to answer any questions. I guess that's what they thought. So they just said, "Gil, just go with them." So they're filming. I'm walking with them, and the women are looking at the sketches, and the producer's saying something. But then I just all of a sudden start to say some things, and they really kind of connect with me. And then they go, "Cut." I go, "Uh-oh, they got upset."
Yeah.
Now they go back, talk a little bit more, and then they go back and they go, "Okay, Gil, yeah, we like what you said
They're
there.
like, do
Do
that.
that again. Do that again." So then we go do it again. I say a little bit more. The producer says that, "Cut." And then they come back and then they go, "Okay, you know what? Forget the producer person. We're just going to
Let's
let
just wing it.
Gil, just do your thing. Just talk, whatever you want to do." So it was kind of great. So at the time, I thought, okay, this is kind of fun. It was interesting. We do it, and then so we do it in January. In April, it comes out, and it just blows up like over
yeah.
180 million worldwide. I'm on NBC, Today Show, Good Morning America. Everything just blew up like crazy. It
Mhm.
was fantastic. It was a great experience.
Well, what did that tell you about? Because like you said, you're used to drawing bad guys. So
Yeah.
when you're drawing these women and you're seeing the way they react to these sketches, what did that teach you about human perception and maybe how we view ourselves? Because the message was so powerful.
Oh yeah. I definitely sensed that they were so hard on themselves. I mean, I felt it as they were telling me. We were getting kind of emotional about it. And I'm used to that when I'm interviewing people. They're telling me the most intimate things about their loss, about what happened to them specifically. So I was used to that. So hearing that them talk about themselves that way really kind of made me understand what they were going through and how that was coming across. And it was very easy for me when I was drawing it to kind of let that come across in the sketches. And it definitely did. When you look at them, you could see the harshness in the self descriptions versus the ones that were not the person, that they were just.
But I feel like we look for our flaws by nature. I think it's just human nature.
Definitely. Ed, you said the same thing. You said about your hat and everything, right? You were talking about your hat. That's something that you don't like, right? So you might be talking about that differently to me if we were describing you or something like that. So,
and just for the people who weren't, this was before we recorded, so I don't like my hair. I'm losing my hair, so that's what this is about. The hat itself is fine. I like that.
Right. The hat is great. But so if I could just interject with the forensic art interview stuff. So because as I mentioned to you before, because I want to be very present, because I want to just accept what they tell me and not make judgments about it. Just, okay, I might ask some clarifying questions, but I'm not manipulating it. I'm not trying to change what they say. I'm just trying to understand what they say. So for me to put that down on a sketch, to me, that was the easy part, in that I know, okay, I'm hearing that, so I'm just going to put that down. So that part of the interview for me was something very similar that I always do on all my sketch interviews. So that wasn't a big departure from working with an eyewitness versus working with these real women. It was, other than not being able to work with them to see the sketch after in the reveal right there to make adjustments, I was pretty confident because it was full circle for me. So remember when I told you that I was sitting in the room with Tom Macris as he was interviewing the eyewitness, and I was there sketching along? Well, if you think about it, that's what was happening in these interviews. I didn't have a chance to ask them, hey, do you want me to change this nose? I heard you say that, but do you want me to change? No, I had to rely on my sketch the way it is based on what I heard. And that was it. So it was kind of a full circle moment for me, because here I was doing this pretty awesome project. And yet it was very similar to what I call my shadow sketches.
Yeah, it seems it morphed into this mega giant of a campaign when it was really just you doing what you do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was very fortunate to be a part of it, and it really was just fantastic. It put forensic art out there. It also put the way I was interviewing out there as well, to kind of challenge other people to consider it as something that they might want to try. But
well, this is incredible insight into a process that we don't normally get to hear about. So we are excited now. Instead of the usual palette cleanser that we do with our guests, we talked to Gil about this demo that he's been hinting at. So in this particular case, Melissa and I have looked at the mugshot of a celebrity who has been convicted of a crime. And we are going to follow Gil's direction as best as we possibly can to make ourselves feel like actual witnesses. Like, I haven't looked at this picture since I looked at it this morning. So I'm going to try to go back and remember all these things. So take it away, Gil. What do we need?
Okay. So for those people that are real traditionalists, right? So right off the bat, we're dealing with people that are not traumatized, right? I don't know. Ed, do you look a little traumatized? No.
Feeling good.
No, he doesn't. He's fine. Melissa, you're good, right? So that's out of the equation here, right? We're just going to focus on the questions themselves, I'm going to rely on their memory to, based on what they saw. You're telling me you don't have the pictures there with you, right?
We do
So you're
not.
not going to be referring to them in studio.
Correct.
Fantastic. It'll feel a lot more realistic for me this way because it's normal for people to kind of struggle with different features. Now,
Sure.
I will tell you when I'm working with multiple witnesses, there's always one that is a little more dominant than the other. That's normal. So what I normally do is I go, okay, Ed and Melissa, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it. So can you tell me who saw this guy, would say they saw him best than the other?
Probably Melissa. She's a little more perceptive than I am.
Okay. Melissa, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask the questions. I am going to go back and forth, but keep in mind that I may go back to Melissa just to get a corroboration, just to make sure that we're down the same road. The way this works is I'm going to ask you some general questions about the person's face. I'd like you to go ahead and answer to the best of your knowledge. Most people don't remember everything in great detail. However, a lot of folks tend to remember a lot of information, especially when they're here and they're focused on the questions. In this case, we're working remotely, so I'm going to rely on you to really be focused on what's going on. One of the ways we do that is I ask people to close their eyes, kind of give me a couple of deep breaths. Makes it a little bit easier to describe, makes it easier to recall what the person looks like. So you're only going to do that for about 10 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes. Then I'm going to ask you to open your eyes, and then I'm going to show you the sketch, or I'm going to ask you what happened. Let me put it that way. And then I'll show you the sketch, and if we need to, we'll make some changes. Do you have any questions for me?
No.
Melissa, do you have any questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, here we go. So first of all, Melissa, tell me the race of this person.
White Caucasian.
Okay. Age range.
I would say mid-30s.
And body build.
Oh, short but thin.
Okay, Ed, tell me about the shape of his face.
I would say an oval, a skinnier face.
Mm-hmm. And Melissa, tell me about his hair. What is that like?
It's kind of feathered. It gives me male version of like a Farrah Fawcett kind of do.
What else can you tell me?
It was brown, and I would say it was long for a man. I guess it was a little bit below the ears, middle part, and layered.
Mm-hmm. So inside baseball stuff, I'll say that every once in a while to give you some information. You guys can stay in the character, right? But what I'm going to say is that it would have been very easy for me to start asking about the feather, the length, and the ears, to say how far it was, how long it was. It would have been very easy for me to ask that question to sound like I want to get very specific. But if your audience will hopefully pick up on the fact that all I did was just say, tell me more. Just left it open. Let Melissa say whatever it is that she's thinking, because she is actually has this person in her mind. So what's going on, and Ed is doing the same thing, is he is just thinking back on what she's saying and kind of comparing that information back and forth as they talk. So, Ed, can you tell me about the color of his hair?
It's like a darkish brown.
Okay. What else?
About his hair specifically, or just...
Yes. Yep, his hair. You said it's dark brown?
The feathered thing is good. I would say the part is on the right side of his head, so it's kind of a sweeping hair across his face.
Okay. Are you okay with that, Melissa?
I thought it was more of a middle part, but
Okay. So more inside baseball. We already know that Melissa was given to me as the person that saw him had the best view. Ed already kind of gave her that, right? So what I'm going to do is, Ed's got it sweeping over. She has it in the middle. I'm just going to go just a little bit past the middle, just enough to see if that's okay for both of them in the end. So that's something that I'm making a change of. More importantly, I know that they're going to see the sketch. So they're going to have an opportunity to make one last change. So either Ed is going to come through or Melissa's going to come through. We don't know right now. But the point is, I know that that's going to change or can change, and I'm okay with it. I don't need to be very precise on that information. Okay, back in. Tell me about his ears, Melissa.
oh, they're not super like Dumbo ears. I don't know the nice way to say it. I mean, I would say they're definitely closer pinned back to his head.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Anything
not
else?
exceptionally big or small. I would say they're definitely fit with his head size.
Okay. Anything else about the ears?
I don't think so.
Okay. Tell me about his forehead, Ed.
Forehead did not stick out to me in any way. I didn't really notice any forehead lines, anything like that. Nothing remarkable about his forehead, in my opinion.
Okay. And staying with you, Ed, tell me about his nose. What is that like?
Thinner nose. So it has the dimples. A thinner nose is the best way. So a skinny nose.
Mm-hmm. Anything else about the nose?
No.
Okay. And Melissa, tell me about his mouth and his lips.
Well, he has a mustache, so his upper lip you can barely see. I would say his mouth is a little bit small, probably for his face, but not doesn't like stand out exceptionally much.
So what do you mean by small?
I feel like it's a little bit. Oh, maybe it's just the mustache that it makes it like his mouth and lips look small. Like the mustache is a little bushier than I feel like it should be.
Ed, can you give me some information about the mustache as well?
Yeah, it definitely comes down. It's not quite a handlebar, but it's definitely, I think Melissa described it well, like an overgrown mustache that does come down on the corners. So not a full handlebar, but definitely around his mouth.
Okay. And Melissa, going back to the lips, did you give me an idea of the thickness?
The top lip you can barely see, but you get the feeling that it's not very thick in general. Like it's probably a mustache to hide the fact that he doesn't have much of an upper lip.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then the bottom lip is definitely not overly pouty, but it's not a thin lip.
Got it. Okay. And Ed, tell me about his chin.
Not pointy.
Mm-hmm.
And not one of those rounded chins, because he's not an overweight. He's thinner.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it just has it's not one of the ones that have the like ball, like us Polacks have the balls on the end of our nose and chin. It's not one of those.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any facial hair, Ed?
Just the mustache.
Okay.
That's it.
And Melissa, tell me about his cheeks.
They're defined, but it's not overly aggressive. Like it's not a sharp cheekbone. But you can definitely see his cheekbones defined.
Mm-hmm. And Ed, tell me about his neck.
Skinny neck that matches his head.
Okay. And what was he wearing for a shirt? Or
hard to tell, because we admittedly looked at a mugshot, so it's only, I want to say it was like maybe a blue button shirt, like a collared shirt.
I think it was a polo.
Was it a polo? I know. I feel like there were buttons involved.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Melissa, tell me about his eyes.
So Ed said something earlier that made me think of his eyes when you talked about his forehead and said like there weren't any lines. He definitely had, they weren't discolored bags under his eyes, but he had like the kind of half circle, half moon under his eye. So it wasn't
That's
like
what I was going to say. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
like bags, but not like a black or dark or purpley bags, but definitely bags under his eyes.
Okay. So what about his eyes?
I feel like they droop kind of, they're pointed where I can only kind of show you, kind of like this, Gil. I'm not looking, but they have that downward slope, and that they're kind of like sad eyes, I guess.
Okay. What's the color of his eyes, Melissa?
I definitely don't think they were a dark color. I think they were probably like a blue or maybe a light green.
So I know in this case you guys were looking at a photograph. Normally I would be asking questions like, did you see the suspect indoors or outdoors?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see him outside, inside, things like that? So obviously you saw the photograph. So no, I'm going to stay away from that right now. Tell me about his eyebrows.
Bushy eyebrows. Not overly unkempt bushy, but kind of bushy like the mustache.
Right. You could tell he took
bushy.
care of his eyebrows like he took care of his mustache.
Okay. So bushy's the word we use, right?
Not like Eugene Levy bushy.
Okay. All right.
No.
Yeah, he's got some eyebrows, yeah.
Yes, he does.
He does.
Anything else you can tell me about his face? Anything unusual? Anything I need to keep in mind?
The bags were the one that stood out to me too.
Me
And
too.
again, and they're not like these crazy bags, but they're definitely, you can tell he's been through some stuff.
Ed, you said he had sad eyes, and I agree there, but I also feel like they're like some people, you look at their eyes and it just feels so ice cold, but I feel like he's got kind eyes.
Yeah, sad in a like droopy dog type of,
like an Eeyore kind of way.
like an Eeyore sad. Yeah, not
okay.
Yeah, but they are kind. I would agree with that.
So other things I would be asking, tell me about his attitude, things like that. So I don't know if you want to talk about that.
I would say at the time he would have been stressed.
But I also get the vibe that he takes everything in stride. Like, he's not grinning in a cocky way, but I think he's smiling in a... what's the word I want?
Like
it's not a cocky smile, but he is smiling.
It's wry. It's called WRY.
So inside baseball stuff, that would have been very easy for me to join in with trying to find the word that you're looking for. Would have been very easy for me to join in, and it would have felt, oh, Gil's helping me. This is good. But guess what? That would have been my word if you would have agreed with it.
Yeah, you're planting seeds.
It's not your words. And guess what? If we were writing a report, now we write the words that, say for instance, I said the word rye instead of Ed, right? Now you guys accepted it. Yes. And now we write it that in the report. He had rye eyes, whatever. When you go to court later and you're testifying about it, and the defense attorney finds out that it really wasn't your words, those kind of things can be used against you.
Sure.
That kind of puts holes in the prosecution's case. What else did they tell you that you didn't necessarily come from your memory?
Yeah, you're introducing doubt.
Exactly. And that kind of doubt the jury picks up on, because they're going, well, yeah, what else did they tell them? What else is going on? So the thing I think I want your audience to kind of pick up on as I'm finishing up, you can open your eyes now, is that there were many opportunities for me to interject, to shape, to give you some help with describing what you were talking about. Like the mustache. You were talking about it. I just asked about the mouth. And it's overgrown. And well, it could have been very easy for me to start saying, well, okay, well, how low? Was it a half an inch, a quarter inch on this side or that side? How about that? Very easy for me to do that. And it would have felt, wow, Gil's doing a really good job in trying to get precise everything. But remember, what I do know is that our memories are not that great. We definitely have a sense of what he looks like. And what's going to happen here when I show you the sketch, drawn very lightly sketched, because I want to make sure I'm in the ballpark. But what's going to happen is you've had this image in your mind. Your eyes were closed. You were describing it. You're going over and over again. Whatever's going on, what I mean by that is that he's there. He's there as close as he can be if he wasn't there at the crime. So you've got that over and over again. Now, when I show you the sketch, it's easy for you now to compare and start saying to yourself, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. One of you is going to immediately focus on one thing and the other might be on another. So it just depends on what happens. So I'm going to show you this just so we can get this part done. Like I said, very lightly done. I'm using a number 4, kind of a 4H for those art geeks out there. So just to make sure, I haven't used any eraser. I'm not worried about being precise because I know that this is part of the interview session. I'm going to share it with you. And now I'm going to get the feedback of whether this is correct or not. What I'd like to do, if you don't mind, and you can share this with the crowd later, I'm going to scan it. I'm not going to do anything to it. Scan it. And I'm going to basically tell you, look at all the features and tell me whether we're in the ballpark or not. That's all that I would ask you. And then all you need to do is say, yes, no, make this adjustment, make that adjustment, over and over again. Just look at the whole thing. And then what I will do is I'll take all the information that you've given me, I'll make the adjustments, and then I'll send you back the final sketch.
When you scan it and send it to us, should we look at this, not talk to each other, and just give you our analysis each solo?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
I would. That way, that's a great idea, because then I can take both of your information and process it like I normally would in a regular case. Like we've already said, you've already given Melissa the cue that she is the one that remembered him the most. So I'm going to make those decisions based on that. So I'll make those adjustments. If you say one thing, she says another, and it's closer to her, I'm going to probably stay with her. And then that will be my reason later when I share it with you to say, this is why I did that versus this.
Gil, this is so freaking cool. Like, I am so excited to be a part of this. I don't want to cross-contaminate by talking to Melissa about it. Like, I'm so curious to see how this turns out. And honestly, sir, thank you so much for this interview and for taking the time out of your schedule.
I've been looking forward to this forever. I find people who draw, I just think I'm so envious. I wish that I could do it. And I think anyone who can do it, I'm already amazed. But the fact that you can pull, not to make it sound as horrifying as the person you talked about earlier, but you are creating this piece of art from someone else's brain, and that's so wild to me. Like I can't wrap my mind around it.
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky, and I just want to thank you guys for inviting me, and I hope your audience finds this entertaining and interesting.
Do you want to promote something before you go?
Well, I'm just everything's there at my mindfulinterviews.com, and all the information is there. Hopefully, some law enforcement people are interested in maybe learning how to interview in this mindful interview method. Just email me. The kids, the students at the different colleges, they all know me, so they're going to get a kick out of this. This will be fantastic. You're probably going to get some more viewers. They're going to log in for you guys.
Yay!
So I just want to thank you guys so much for letting me kind of share with you my process. And I hope that everything turns out right with our sketch demo. And I'll be looking forward to listening.
Well, sir, this was awesome, and we will be in touch.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye, Melissa.
Thank you.
Bye, Ed. Take care.
3 days later.
Okay, so we spent some time over the last couple days tightening things up with Gil with the sketches.
Yes, tightening meaning we exchanged a couple emails with him back and forth, fine-tuning what our memory was, because this is what he would do in real life. He'd be like, "Are you sure about the hair? Is there anything else that I missed?" Or that, and that was looking at his
ad.
Yes, correct. And then eventually he sends in the final sketch. So that's where we're at. And Melissa, do you want to reveal who we were actually looking at when we were trying to recall this mugshot?
Yes. So the picture we chose was Tim Allen's 1978 mugshot for a drug arrest in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Yep. He was arrested at the Battle Creek Kalamazoo International Airport after giving a brown Adidas gym bag containing over 650 grams of cocaine to undercover officer Michael Pfeiffer. And basically, what's interesting, totally unrelated, is that he turned his life around. This is why he developed a career in comedy, because of this arrest.
I think he was a good choice for a mugshot because I think there was a lot to explain. However, I have to admit, when Gil was asked, like, I thought I studied this picture pretty hard, which is already kind of cheating because when you see someone as a witness, you're not expecting to have to remember them later.
Right.
But I have to be honest, when we had our eyes closed and he was asking us questions, he said something about the ears, and I was like, oh my God, did he even have ears? It was like in my head, whatever I had seen as the ears just completely disappeared.
That's what blew me away, is that how little I actually remembered. Like, I could see it vividly in my head, but when it came time to describe it, I don't know if my brain blocked out certain elements. For example, the biggest thing that stood out to me, we're going to put this real sketch up on right now so you guys can all see, and also on our social media so you guys can see what Gil did for us. But my observations of this was I missed how poofy Tim Allen's hair was up front. And I think that's a big distinguishing factor, is he has like this little kind of curl in the middle part. So you were right about that. And also his kind of big blocky eyebrows. I think that screwed us up. But other than that, the sketch is like, I'm looking at it going, if I passed that guy in a laundromat or a grocery store, would I be able to pick him out as Tim Allen then, knowing the real guy? And the answer is, I don't know.
When I was tightening it up with Gil, one thing I said was, I feel like, because I originally said he's got Farrah Fawcett hair, which he does, from like the forehead down. But for the top of the hair, I said it was bigger and it was very, quote, 90s heartthrob hair.
Yeah, right.
Which is like,
it's true though.
You know what that looks like.
I do. It's a wave.
Yeah.
And the other thing I screwed up was I had him extend his hair past his ears and like down kind of into his shoulders, like fuller in the bottom. And then now looking at Tim Allen's mugshot, it's not there at all.
That was my fault because I said he's got longish hair. It's below the ears.
Oh, but
so
see,
I probably led you.
Maybe. And that's the other thing to consider, how our brains remember stuff. And I was astounded that I remembered so little.
I think it's interesting that we both remember the bags under his eyes were the biggest standout feature. And again, they aren't like tired bags. They're like stressed bags.
I'll tell you what, the one thing that I find very, very interesting is that we talked about his mustache and I said I wasn't sure about how far it came down on the sides. The drawing that Gil did has almost like half and half. The left side of the guy's mustache is drooping way down where the right side is shorter. And maybe that's a technique. And I'm sure he could explain more, but a technique to be like, oh, this, if you're like not sure, here's kind of both options. And maybe you see one side of the face differently, but it looks just like Tim Allen's mustache. So that was like spot on.
Yeah, I do think it looks like him because I know who it is. But I don't know that I would put it together. It's different.
And that's what I'm saying. Like if you saw the guy in the sketch, if you passed him on the street and was like, was this the guy you saw? I'm like, I don't know now seeing the real guy.
Yeah.
So that was an awesome way to end this block. I hope you guys learned something about sketches and how they're used in investigations, and now a alternate way, maybe a non-traditional way that these sketches can come to life in a way that I agree with Gil, who obviously has way more intelligence and experience and education than I do, but I agree that his method will bring out the best possible recollection that you can possibly obtain from a potential witness.
You know what else he has a lot of that you don't? Hair.
We talked about the hat. I know. Anyway, so December we'll have a new co-host.
Good luck, y'all. Okay, we were just talking about the things he said to me, like when he said during our spring cleaning block that I've never cleaned anything in my life but my plate.
All right, we're even. Fair, You're back. Melissa and I will be back in December.
Truer words have never been spoken, but that's not the point.
December is always our month to just recap, where all of the research producers and ourselves, we pick our favorite theme and we do another case from that theme. So A lot of stuff is still kind of up in the air, but we did have a guest reach out to us, and it's different and in a good way. So it's going to be a really unique conversation that'll air around Christmas. So that's our gift to you.
Absolutely. And actually, the case that this guest kind of goes along with is horrific and tragic, but it also changed a lot of things like in the way the public looks at crime. Definitely stay tuned for that one. And we would love to hear what you have to say about Gil, because he was super cool and probably one of my favorite guests that we've had on so far. He was great.
Really insightful and just fun.
It was fun. Well, guys, let us know what you think. You can hit us up on our website, www.murderunscriptedpod.com. You can shoot us an email at murderunscriptedpod@gmail.com, or you can hit us up on any of our socials, Facebook, Insta, TikTok, or if you want to start a more in-depth discussion, we can do that on our Reddit page at Murder Unscripted.
Yes, you can. And we just want to wish you guys all a very happy Thanksgiving. I know we're 2 days away, so stuff your faces, wear your sweatpants. We just want to give a big thank you to every one of the guests that have participated in this show, our humble little show, who have taken the time to come on. Edna Cal Martin, Dr. Jeffrey Smalden, Laura Cowan, Wynn and Valerie Brabazon, Rebecca and Rachel from People Are the Worst, Detective Kurt Mail, Michelle Knight, now known as Lily Rose Lee,
Yes.
Corporal Rob Betnar, Shannon Bradley Byers, Catherine Ramslin, and last but not least, the amazing Gil Zamora. So guys, this has been a true blessing to be able to tell these stories for another year and to be able to speak to such insightful and incredible people. We're humbled.
Most importantly, thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you to the moon and back.
Fact.
Your comments, your reviews, we read them all. We appreciate 99% of them. We appreciate 100% of you guys listening.
That's true.
So we will talk to you in December. And until then, stay safe, stay hydrated, and remember, perverts don't wear signs that say they're perverts. Bye.
See ya.